Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. So welcome to another episode of this Bible Christian meditation that I want to share with you guys today. And now today we're going to talk about this topic that in recent times I think it's very important for us to be reminded of. And the title of this very quick meditation is going to be God is still in control. And you see this global pandemic, wars, diseases, people dying, just economic crisis, like all these bad things happening lately, especially, make us really wonder, but God, is He still in control? Like, it seems that things have gotten out of hand, right? It seems that God is losing control of the world because too many bad things are happening. A good God, an all-loving God, an all-powerful God could never allow all these things to happen. So these were my questions, and whenever I prayed, I just asked these questions to God, like, why? Why are all these bad things happening? It seemed like God was out of control. But in reality, remember that God is always in control. Nothing ever happens if He doesn't know it. God is all-knowing. Something that we tend to forget is that God is not only good, just, all-powerful, all-loving, but God merciful, but God is also all-knowing. He knows everything. God is outside time. That's why He knows everything. Because we see time as a line from left to right. That's how we see time. So we see past, present, and future. So things that happened before, things happening now, things that will happen. God instead looks at time like a line from the other side. So for God, present, past, and future are all in the same line, are all happening at the same time because it's outside time. He's not under time. So for Him, there is no past, no present, or no future. It just exists. So He sees, when He looks from outside time, He sees time as something like a line like this. So it's not from left to right, but it's like from back to the front. So He sees everything happening at the same time. And that's why He knows everything. Because it's not like God doesn't know your future because you haven't done the action, but God knows what you're going to do very simply because He sees you doing it, because it's outside time, right? I know this is hard to grasp, but this is a very important factor whenever we're trying to analyze God and try to argue about why, for example, we are really we have free will to do choices, but God knows everything, right? How can we be free to choose if God already knows what I'm going to choose? If God knows what I'm going to choose, then I'm not really free to choose, right? But in reality, you are free because you are inside time, so your future actions might be unknown to you. But God, that is outside time, He doesn't see your future as something distinct from the present. He just sees everything. Everything that you are going to do, that you're doing and you're going to do, it's laying in bare. So He sees everything. So that's why He sees what you're going to do and He knows what you're going to do. But very importantly, the fact that He knows what you're going to do doesn't mean that He's causing you to do it. He's not forcing you to do this or that. He knows what you're going to do, but He doesn't forcing you to do. So that's why we can be completely free and we can have free will to choose one thing or another, while God can still have perfect all-knowing and can know everything without causing us to choose one thing or the other. Now, this being said, going back to the main theme of this video, I want you here to focus about the attitude of Jesus when He was praying before He got arrested. You see here, Jesus is praying And Jesus is grieving because of the fact that Jesus already knows what's going to happen. He knows the immense pain, the immense suffering that he's going to have to go through the torture, then the crucifixion. He knows that he's going to die. And he knows the pain and suffering that all that is going to cause on him. He already knows it. But it's very nice to see what was the attitude of Jesus. And you see here, Jesus really, it's putting God's will above everything else. Jesus knew perfectly fine that God is in control of everything. And therefore, Jesus is trusting God to fulfill his promise, to fulfill his word, and to save humanity. Because Jesus knew that the only way humanity could be saved was through his own suffering. He knew it. As a human, though, he was, just wrestling so much against it because he knew all the pain and suffering. And I think no one wants to gladly accept pain and suffering and even dying, right? So let's read here the verses. Now, this episode, all right, it's reported in 3 Gospels out of 4. So we can find it in Matthew, in Mark, and in Luke. We don't have these words in this episode in the Gospel of John, because John is a slightly different Gospel. But we're going to read here the 3 versions from this same episode. So, starting from Matthew chapter 26, verse 39. And here is, we're talking about Jesus. So he says, going a little further, he fell with his face to the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it's possible, may this cup be taken from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will." Let's go to Mark. Mark chapter 14, verse 36. "Abba, Father," he said, "everything is possible for you. Take this cup from me. Yet not what I will, but what you will." And then in Luke chapter 22, verse 42. "Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me. Yet not my will, but yours be done." You can see that there are some slightly differences in these 3 verses, from the 3 books, but the main message is the same. Jesus is grieving because he knows what he's gonna have to go through. He knows all the pain and suffering. Yet, Jesus here is putting God's will above. So he's saying, "God, I know that you can rescue me from this. I know that you can take this cup from me, because everything is possible for you. Yet, not what I will, so not what I want, but what you want. Your will is above everything." And I think this really teaches us a lot, because of the fact that we are very quick to point the finger to God every time that our will is different from his. So let's just do a very silly example. I want to buy a new car. So I go into prayer and I say, "God, please let me buy a new car. Let me really find this car that I want, and please let me buy it. I really need it. I need it for my family. I need it for my job. I need it. So God, please give me this car." So imagine this is a prayer, right? And then after a few days, few weeks, maybe you realize that you will not be buying that car, but you will be buying instead something else, maybe a motorcycle, right? And so you go again into prayer and you say, "God, why are you not giving me the car? I really need it. Can't you see that I need to bring people to the church? I need to have space. I need to have a car so that I can use it to serve you. I can use it to to do things for your kingdom. Like I need a car. So you keep praying, but you don't get the car, and so you snap. After, I don't know, maybe a couple of months that you don't get the car, you stick with the old same motorcycle. You say, "Oh God, you don't want to give me a car, whatever. I'm gonna go buy it myself anyway." So you go, you maybe take a loan, you buy a car, and then we never know what's gonna happen. Maybe you start maybe God blesses you through the car, maybe He doesn't. And I don't know if this has happened to you, but many times we do this, right? This was just a silly example, but we tend to want God to do what we want, right? So we ask God to do what we want. My will is to do this, and so God must follow my will and must do this. But remember that God is God. He's sovereign. No, He is the one that is in control. And therefore our attitude should be the one as Jesus. He said, "Not my will, but yours." So whenever you're praying, whenever you're asking for something, you should always pray like this. You should pray, "God, I would really like to have a new car. But if it's in your will, I will have it. But if it's not in your will, please show me another way. Show me how I can keep on serving you. Show me how I can keep on walking into your path and obeying to your word and really following your will." See, that's how we should be praying. We should always put God's will above our own will. Because God is in control. God always is in control. Nothing ever gets out of God's hands. He's always in control. So even when bad things happen, they are still under God's control. We might not know or fully understand why He allows bad things to happen. We can argue about that. We can think philosophically, logically, reasonable answers as to why God allows bad things to happen. But at the end of the day, God is the one in control. God is God. He's sovereign. He's above everything else. So He has the last word. So we shouldn't try to manipulate God to do our will, but instead we should try to adapt and modify our will according to His will. And why should we do that? We find the answer in Romans chapter 12, verse 2, that says, "Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will." So here we have the answer to what we asked before. So why should we trust and why should we adapt to God's will? Because it's good, because it's pleasing, and because it's perfect. But we can only do this. See here that says, "Then you will be able to test and approve." So we can test and approve that God's will is good, pleasing, and perfect when we, and we'll go back to the verse, when we stop conforming to this word, to how this word thinks, but we are transformed into our thinking. And if we go back to the example as before, we think when we want to buy something like a new car, we think like this word. I need a car because a car is going to allow me to drive in this way, to do this, to do that. We just think about the word. We're not thinking like God is thinking. So when we renew our thinking, when we stop conforming to what the word offers or what's important for the word, but we start focusing on what's important for God, then we start realizing how good, pleasing, and perfect God's will is. Because if He gives us that car, it was because it was in His will, and therefore we're going to be able to bless others with it. But if it wasn't, into his will, it's because it was the best thing, because his will is perfect, it's good, his will, and it's pleasing. So when we have this attitude of always leaving everything to God, knowing that he's good, knowing that his will is perfect, and we just adapt, we just leave God to do his own thing, we just trust him, we just need to trust in him. Keep renewing our mind, keep renewing our thinking, not thinking like the world, that things like riches, like wealth, status, power, all these things are important for the world. Instead, in the Word of God, we find it's important instead to be humble, to search for the things of the kingdom and not look at materialistic things. And the Word of God is many times completely opposite to what the Word offers and what's the thinking, the pattern of the Word. So that's why we always, every day, we have to renew our mind to see, okay, what's really important. Because remember that the Word of God is everlasting, it's eternal. And when we're renewed in the mind, when we accept God's will and we accept Jesus' sacrifice and we accept his gift, and we are born again and we are saved and we are redeemed, then that's the life that is gonna start in us, and that's the life that's gonna progress forever. And so yeah, that was the meditation I wanted to share with you guys. So I hope it was helpful. I hope you enjoyed. God bless you and see you. Bye bye.